الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Ask Allah to make this another beneficial sitting where we are learning the statements and the adhkar and the practices of the best of mankind, alayhi salatu wassalam. And from this we know that he came with the most virtuous of knowledge and the uppermost in wisdom and the best example in worship and ibadah and getting closer to Allah. And most of us try and exert ourselves as much as we can to seek knowledge and to get closer to Allah by acts of worship. But through these lectures that we have, these lessons and anything that you are engaged in acts of worship, it's upon us all, including myself, to reflect and to account yourself as to how much of it actually penetrates. Listening to lectures and listening to clips and having posters and whatever you have that comes on your mobile phone, it's become like an everyday action where people are exposed to a lot of knowledge. Even if it's in a short space of time, there are certain things that they remember, there are certain things that they relate to, and there's certain things that they forget. And they walk away and they think, okay, well that was good and I benefited from that. But how much of it actually penetrates? How much of it actually improves a person's iman? How much does it actually affect a person's life? And I think that's something that we all need to ask ourselves and renew our intention with Allah Jalla wa Ala. And in today's chapter, I think there is an example of that. We are at chapter 15, Adhkar al-Athan. And the ulama have stated that the Adhan is a symbol of Islam. It's one of the most apparent symbols of Islam. It includes the call to Tawhid, and in it, for the person that's saying the Adhan, the person that's responding to it, whether it's verbally or physically, is a sign of Iman. And it's unfortunate now that this Adhan has become one of those things that we were just talking about earlier, one of those systematic, robotic things that people, unfortunately, for all of us, and again I'm talking to myself, how much of it do we actually need, even though it's a symbol of Islam? How much do we actually relate to, even though it's a symbol of Islam? How many times do you hear the mu'adhin in a day, or maybe even a week, maybe even in a month, and then any of this actually applies to us? So this is something that I wanted to reiterate for myself and for us all, that these lessons or anything that you are interacting with when it comes to the text of the Sharia, Quran, Sunnah, statements from ulama and the Salaf, etc., if it's not going to change your life, if it's not going to make you a better person, if it's not going to make you question yourself, then really is it a proof for you or against you? Al-Adhan linguistically comes from an-nida. An-nida is a call, and this has been mentioned in Surah Al-Bara, وَأَذَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ إِلَى النَّاسِ يَوْمَ الْحَجِّ. And that was a call that the Prophet ﷺ, at that time Abu Bakr, was told to make, that after this year there won't be any mushriks allowed to come for Hajj. وَأَذَان. So Adhan is an announcement. But what is it technically? What is it referring to when we say Adhan? And we all refer to Adhan to mean something which is something more specific than the linguistic definition. And the Adhan is well known to us all. I'm sure 15 sentences where a person says these when the time of prayer begins. That is the closest technical definition that you probably could find. Sentences that are said to announce the beginning of a prayer. And again, let's go back to that point before. How much of it do we actually need? You know, sometimes people ask, how long left until the next salah? Meaning, how much do I have left to prolong my salah so I can pray within that period? Or how many left till sunrise? I can keep sleeping. How many minutes left until Asr so I can delay my dhuhr? Now, the Adhan is something which is said at the beginning, not 5-10 minutes before the Jama'ah. Some of the ulama have said that. But the correct definition to this, and this is the opinion of a lot of the ulama, is that the Adhan should be said at the beginning of the prayer time. And there's a narration which proves this and also gives us a definition from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as to what the Adhan actually means. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu said that we were with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one of his travels. حتى إذا كان في وجه الصبح. The Fajr prayer began. The time for Fajr prayer began. So a man started making the call. And he said, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And he said that 4 times. So when the Prophet ﷺ had the mu'adhin saying the adhan, the Prophet ﷺ said, Ala fitrati hada. That this man is upon the fitrah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So the Prophet ﷺ is describing for us that when we make the takbir, something which should be pure and innocent, and showing the connection a slave should have with his Lord, this is clear proof that here it doesn't have a violent meaning. It doesn't have a negative meaning. It doesn't have a meaning that we want to conquer a particular country or particular group of people, whether they like it or not. So the use of the word takbir of Allahu Akbar in that manner, where people are shown doing appalling things in the name of Islam, is not upon the fitrah. And the Prophet ﷺ has clearly described here that the person who's making the takbir is the one who's making the oneness of Allah Jalla wa Ala. And that he described him upon the fitrah. Then the mu'adhin said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, twice. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, when this man said this, Bari hada min ash-shirk. Bari hada min ash-shirk. That this man now has abandoned himself and removed himself or distanced himself from shirk. Then the man said, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So then the Prophet ﷺ, commenting on this and giving the explanation on this, and he said about the mu'adhin, خَرَجَ هَذَا مِنَ النَّارِ. This person now has taken himself outside of the hellfire. And then when he said, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala falah, the Prophet ﷺ rejoiced. And he said, ظهر Islam ورب الكعبة. He said, now Islam has become apparent, where we can say, come to as-salat and come to success openly. And Islam now, alhamdulillah, is being accepted. And then they went, and this was happening whilst they were traveling, and the mu'adhin who was making the call has been described by Ibn Mas'ud here as being a shepherd. So then they went to seek this man, and then they told him that the Prophet ﷺ was hearing your adhan, and this is what he said about you. That you are upon the fitrah, and you are from the safe from the hellfire, etc. The adhan also enables a person to show respect and love for the prayer, and that he is about to have a meeting with his Lord. And the Prophet ﷺ actually saw a group of people who came to the Masjid for the Salat late, and then they were sitting at the back of the Masjid. So the Prophet ﷺ said to them, تَقَدَّمُوا فَأَتِمُّوا بِي. He said, come closer and get closer towards the front of the saf. And then he went on to say that those people who don't show that respect of coming early, not coming early because he didn't say that, but coming to the front and seeking to come to the front when you have the ability to do so. لا يزال قوم يتأخرون حتى يؤخرهم الله. There's not a group of people that on purpose choose to stay behind except that Allah will make them stay behind. So what we learn from this, that again we're talking about the very first point that we were talking about earlier, is that the adhan shows a level of love and respect and for the meeting with Allah Jalla wa Ala. The Prophet ﷺ also described that those people who come early to the masjid and get closest to the imam is a sign of their piety. And it's also a sign that that knowledge that they have gained from elsewhere has an effect on them. It has had an effect on them. The Prophet ﷺ said, لَيِّنَ لِمِنْكُمْ أُولُو الْأَحْلَامِ وَالنُّهَاءِ. Those people who are the most pious and the most knowledgeable should be those who are closest to the imam. And the opposite is also true. That is a sign of ignorance, and it's a sign of weak iman. It's a sign of perhaps even nifaq, where a person optionally wants to be late in going to the masjid. Late going to the masjid. Not that he doesn't come to the masjid at all. That's a complete separate scenario. And the Prophet ﷺ talked about this in many different scenarios, and he said that whoever comes to the masjid early for the period of 40 days, 40 yawm fi jama'ah, yudrik takbiratul ula, that he comes early and he makes the takbiratul ihram with the imam, kutibat lahu bara'atan. For him, he has been safe from two very dangerous areas, bara'at min an-nar wa bara'at min nifaq. He's been saved from the hellfire and he's been saved from nifaq. And even if you think about it now, Masjid al-Nabawi, we know that that's from the gardens, the old Masjid where the Prophet ﷺ had established the masjid, is a garden from the gardens of Jannah. Then the masjid expanded. Umar expanded and Uthman expanded it. To the extent now that if you were to come early to the masjid, you won't be praying in that place where the Prophet ﷺ, A, he prayed himself, and B, it's not in that area which is being designated as a place of Jannah. So some of the ulama have said, now look, Umar expanded it forwards, towards the south, but despite that, you're still recommended coming early, you're still recommended being in the front saf. So now look at what we are saying here, and look at the understanding of some of the Salaf here, that for you to be on the front saf is even better than you praying in a part which has been designated as being a part of Jannah. Look at the effect and look at the importance and the virtue of coming early. Also, the Prophet ﷺ himself used to make istighfar and make dua for the people who are in the front saf. كان يستغفر للصف المقدم ثلاثة. He used to make istighfar for them 3 times. And then for the second saf, once. وَلِلثَّانِ مَرَّةً. Again, this is showing you that this chapter of the adhan should have an effect on our spirituality. It shouldn't just be something which is like book knowledge. It should be something that we should be concerned about for ourselves. And coming early to the masjid and witnessing the adhan, as you can see, is an emphasis of tawheed and a freeing from shirk and nifaq. And also a person then is able to listen to the Quran and benefit from it. And we've also looked at last week and on previous occasions on how a person leaves his house and the angels are accompanying him and making dua for him. And we looked at last week how a person enters the masjid and he says the supplication for entering the masjid, and the shaitan says, I can't do anything against this person. And as if all of this wasn't enough, it's been narrated in many different narrations, and I'll give some examples now, bi'idhnillah, of the Salaf, and to the extent that they used to preserve coming early to the Masjid. It's narrated that some of the companions were gathered once, and a man said from them, he goes, I would not like to miss the first takbiratul ihram, and I would sacrifice even 50 sheep for doing so. So another man said, he goes, I wouldn't miss takbiratul ihram even for 100 sheep. So another man said, I wouldn't sacrifice the takbiratul ihram even if it was the whole dunya and everything that is within it. So another man competing with him said, I would not miss takbiratul ihram even if I prayed in its stead between Isha and Fajr the next morning. This is the extent that the companions and the Salaf used to compete and argue and remind again one another. This is not just about saying that I'm trying to be better than you. The point here is that they're trying to remind one another that we've been with Rasulullah, we've had these ayat, we've had these ahadith come to us. Is it just something that we are going to take and maybe even just take as information but not take as knowledge? Sa'id ibn Musayyib said, I have not seen a man's back whilst I was praying for 50 years. What does that mean? He's in the front saf. He's never been in the second saf for 50 years. Whenever he's praying behind the Imam, he's always been at the front. And then it's been also narrated from some of the Salaf that if they missed praying in congregation, it used to affect them. They used to, the character and the emotions used to change. And they even used to punish themselves for missing the Jama'ah. One of the companions of Imam al-Shafi, his name was al-Muzani, he said, if I missed the Jama'ah, I used to pray that same salat 25 times again, to hope that Allah will accept it from me. Hatim al-Asam said, I missed the congregation one time, and Abu Ishaq al-Bukhari, another one from the Salaf, one of his friends, came up to him and he gave him his condolences. He missed the salah in Jama'ah and he gave him his condolences. And he said that the way he gave me condolences is as if my newborn child had just passed away. A calamity, he was saying. He said, a calamity in the dunya is far lighter than a calamity that will affect my akhirah. Another one of the Salaf said that they used to weep if they missed the Salat in Jama'ah. And we know that this piety is accepted with Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ru'ya salihah, ajil bushrul mu'min." Now, if you see a good sign, if you see a good dream, then this is a sign of piety and a sign of communication, and if that's the right word, from Allah Jalla wa Ala Himself. So it's been narrated that one of the Salaf missed Takbirat al-Ihram and he missed the congregation prayer because his mother had passed away. His mother has passed away, he's busy with that. And because of that, he missed praying in Jama'ah. So what he did is after everything was done, he went home, he prayed that same Salat 27 times. So he went to sleep. And in his night, when he was sleeping, he saw a dream. And his mother was there. And she said to him, what you have done is what you have done. You've prayed 27 times. But what about the angels saying Ameen? You missed it. So what we learn from this is that what she's saying is that you can do the repetition, you can make qadha as much as you want, but it's not going to be the same level of virtue. And this is from the rahmah from Allah and the acceptance from Allah that Allah has. Imagine his mother's just passed away and she's still in communication with him. It's also been narrated from another one of the Salaf. He said that if I ever missed the congregational prayer, what I used to do is I used to go around my city looking for another masjid that would have a chance for me to make that prayer up. And if I can meet it, I meet it. He goes, one time I went and all the masajids were closed. So I came home and I was extremely saddened that I missed the congregation prayer. So he said to himself, and he thought, and he said, what have I missed out? I've missed out 27 times, because he remembered the hadith. So he prayed Salatul Isha 27 times. And then he went to sleep, and in his dream he saw a group of men in front of him riding their horses. And he was way behind riding his horse. So what he was doing in his dream, he was lashing his horse, trying to catch up with the rest. And they were shouting from in front of him. They said, don't make your horse tired, don't abuse your horse, because you will never be able to catch us. So he shouted to them and said, why? Why is that, my brother? And they said to him, because you prayed the Isha, we prayed in congregation and you prayed by yourself. And then when he woke up in a state of sadness and worry. So this is my point, my brothers and sisters, that, in tilawat Quran, any kind of interaction that we have with knowledge, look how it affected the Salaf, and look how they would give their dunya, they would give their time, they would give absolutely almost anything to implement what they have learnt. With this now, maybe it's a good question to ask, what is it that is referred to as coming early? And some of the ulama have said, and is connected to what we're going to do here today, is that you should be there for the adhan. So if you meet the adhan, you are considered as those people who have come early to the masjid. Others from the ulama have said, it's the iqamah. So even if you've missed the adhan, then it doesn't matter. Others from the ulama have said the first ruku'. So if you meet the first ruku' or the rak'ah with the imam, then you have been classed as those people who have come early. But the majority of the ulama, and this includes the contemporaries like Ibn Uthaymeen, Shaykh Salaf Fawzan, have said that if you come before Takbiratul Ihram, if you're in the Saf Takbiratul Ihram, then you are classed as those people who have come early. And all of these virtues and anything else that we've not mentioned today will apply to you. But that doesn't necessarily mean now that you can become relaxed and think, okay, well, I don't need to be there for the adhan. Because the adhan itself has many virtues. And from them, like we've seen, is the affirmation of Tawhid, and the freeing from the hellfire, and the freeing from shirk, and freeing from Nifaq. And as we will see, the shafa' of the Prophet ﷺ being made eligible for that person also. Hadith number 22, يقول مثل ما يقول المؤذن. The Prophet ﷺ, in the hadith of Abu Sa'id, it's been agreed upon by Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, if you hear the mu'adhin making the adhan, then say as he is saying, except when he says hayya ala salat and hayya ala falah. Then replace that with la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So what we learn from this here now is that when the mu'adhin is saying the adhan, then he should repeat after him. He should repeat after him. And all of this, again, has a great deal of virtue. There's also another hadith of Umar al-Khattab, radiyallahu anh, where the Prophet ﷺ said, Man qala la ilaha illallah min qalbihi. Whoever says la ilaha illallah sincerely from his heart, fulfilling those conditions in his heart, and also externally, the Prophet ﷺ said, dakhala al-jannah. Such a person will enter into Jannah. Takbir, la ilaha illallah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, etc. And we've looked at la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah before. Hawl refers to might. La hawla, there is no might from myself. And quwwa refers to no power from myself. So now the salat has been called, and They're calling me to salah, they're calling me to success in the dunya and the akhirah, and I have no might and power to attain that except through what Allah aids me with. Some of the ulama have said hawl and quwwah has an alternative meaning. Some of them said hawl means change and quwwah means ability. So there is no change in myself and there is no ability in myself except with what Allah gives to me. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And again we've said that the adhan has 15 sentences, and Imam al-Qurtubi, when he was talking about the adhan, he talks about the order as to why we have that order in the adhan. And he said it starts with takbir because this is the pinnacle of takbir, this is the pinnacle of tawheed, making takbir of Allah, glorifying Him and affirming all greatness to Him and no imperfection, high in His status, high in His essence, in His description, and high above His creation physically. This is the pinnacle of Tawheed. Then Imam Qurtubi said, then we make the tahleel, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, again affirming the first sentence and explaining it. There is no God worthy. So what does Allahu Akbar mean? It means that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah. And again, it doesn't refer to killing innocent people and shedding blood mindlessly. Then we attest to the Prophet being the Prophet, or Muhammad being the Prophet and the slave of Allah. And Imam Qurtubi said that this is very important because now this is still the first pillar of a person's Islam. As we know, Islam has 5 pillars and the very first one is the Shahadatain. Now he's saying here that this is an extension of that first pillar, but the reason why we do this is to give the Prophet ﷺ his true and due status. True and due status. He is true in the sense that there is no deficiency in him. He's come and he is actually the messenger of Allah. And there is no deficiency in anything that he said and did and what he left behind. But his true status is that he is a slave. And that stops us from making ghulu and going into extremes about our love and how we show that love for him. He is a prophet without any deficiency, he is infallible, but at the same time he is a slave of Allah and not the object of worship. So Imam Qurtubi is saying that look here, we're having a system also in the adhan. And then he went on to say that this completes the 2 types of ikhlas. Ikhlas to our Creator and ikhlas to the creation. And the only way you can have true ikhlas to the creation is if you make Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the head of that creation. And if you show sincerity to him, then only then can you show true sincerity to the rest of creation. Because you can't treat another created being better than Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can't give another human his right. You can't give animals their rights. You can't give the air its rights correctly unless if you follow the guidance that he came with. And then Imam Qurtubi goes on to say this bit here is that when we are called to salah, when we are called to falah, that we are not able to do any of the previous statements, Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, we are not able to fulfill these sentences either unless if we fulfilled those ones before. And these sentences here that we have in hadith number 22, La hawla wa la hayya la salah hayya la falah, when we say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, is then showing that we need Allah's assistance and His ability. And then the adhan finishes with takbir again and tahleel, La ilaha illallah at the end, which again reaffirms the very first pillar and the very purpose of your existence. And it also reaffirms belief in the last day within this context here. Hayya ala salah, and the falah is in the akhir. So as we can see that this adhan is not only a practical symbol of Islam, but also the sentences within it reaffirm a person's iman and his connection to Allah 5 times a day. And some of the ulama have also said that a person says Hayya ala salah, and then they say Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, because it doesn't matter whether you respond or not, this is the haqq. And this is what Allah has created you for. And if you ask for Allah's help, He will help you. And if you don't respond, then that doesn't change Allah's status at all. Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. And some of the ulama have said that this is the relevance that we find in the beginning of Surah Al-Jumu'ah, where Surah Al-Jumu'ah begins with يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. That it begins with making tasbih of Allah in one of the names of the surahs which belongs to perhaps the most important salah in the whole week. That whether you come to Jumu'ah or not, whether you respect the Jumu'ah or not, everything in the heavens and the earth makes tasbih of Allah anyway. And it's similar to here in the Athan. The Prophet ﷺ is telling us here that we should repeat after the mu'adhin, but what's the ruling on it? The majority of the ulama have said that it is sunnah. And the reason why we know that it is sunnah, the Prophet ﷺ is telling us to repeat after the mu'adhin. But he himself, in the hadith that we took earlier of Ibn Mas'ud, he didn't repeat himself. He said ala fitra, etc. So this is proof for us that it is sunnah to repeat after the mu'adhin, and it's not wajib. But the Hanafis in the madhab have said that it is wajib to repeat after the mu'adhin. And this is also the opinion of others from the ulama, including Ibn Taymiyyah. And Ibn Taymiyyah, coincidentally, also said that if a person is in salat, he still has to repeat after the mu'adhin, even if he is in his own salat. So for example, you've come to the masjid early, and the mu'adhin starts making the adhan, you still in the state of salat would need to repeat after the mu'adhin. This is not the correct opinion, bi'idhnillah. What seems to be the correct opinion is that it is sunnah, because the Prophet ﷺ is saying that we should do so here. And had it been wajib, then he would have done so whilst he was hearing that shepherd making the adhan. The Prophet ﷺ is saying here, when the mu'adhin says Hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, then you say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. But what do we do in Fajr? As-salatu khayrun min an-nawm, as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm. The ulama have taken the first part of this hadith here to be then the default. يقول مثل ما يقول. He should say as the mu'adhin is saying. So if the mu'adhin now starts saying as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm, then you would say as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm, and you wouldn't say la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Also from the rulings of this, the Prophet ﷺ has said that if you hear the mu'adhin saying the adhan, then you should repeat after him. Is that the ulama agreed the ulama agreed that if a person hears the adhan, then it is not allowed for him to leave the masjid. Some of them said it is makruh, but whilst others have said that it is haram. And the only exception would be is if he is going to leave the masjid for a purpose and then return before the commencement of that prayer, or that he is going to leave this masjid to pray somewhere else, because he has heard the call, and once you have heard the call, then you must respond to it, whether it's in this masjid or another one. This is the first dhikr in this chapter, which is talking about what you should do during the adhan. What should you do after the adhan, or the next adhkar mentioned by the Shaykh here. So hadith number 23, the Prophet ﷺ said that when a person finishes hearing from the adhan, this is in Sahih Muslim, he should say وأن أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمد عبده ورسوله رضيت بالله ربا وبمحمد رسولا وبالإسلام دينا. And you should say that after the end of the adhan, once the mu'adhin has finished the adhan. That addition here, when you should say it, has been narrated by Ibn Khuzaymah in his Sahih. And this statement here, I mean, we've taken the tahleel, la ilaha illallah, and la sharika la, and Muhammad abduhu wa rasuluh, on different occasions, and perhaps we've already alluded to what Al-Qurtubi said earlier also. This next bit here, Raditu Billahi Rabba. Now, this sentence is said after the adhan, and it's also been narrated that we should say this during our morning and evening adhkar. And the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever says this every morning and every evening, that the Prophet Raditu Billah Rabba wa bi Muhammad Rasulah wa bil Islami Dina. Whoever says this every morning and evening 3 times, the Prophet ﷺ said, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, he will hold his hand and take him into Jannah personally. 3 times that you should say. And bi'idhnillah, we'll revisit this and remind ourselves about it when we talk about the evening and morning adhkar. But what does it mean to say this after the adhan? That you are pleased with Allah as your Lord. He is the one who created you, He is the one who provides for you, and He sustains for you. And He is the one who has legislated this prayer and this sharia for you. And that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is your Rasul, that you are pleased with Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam as your messenger. What this means is that you accept him being the messenger of Allah. You affirm that he has given you the message and you have accepted it from him. So now you are going to follow him in this. You are pleased that Islam is your religion, with its laws and with its lifestyle and with its ahkam, and you accept it wholeheartedly. So again, this is going back to what we were saying before, that if a person is saying these things morning and evening, seeking the face of Allah, seeking Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the akhirah and being with him, you're saying this after the adhan, but then it doesn't have an influence and doesn't really change the person's mindset and his personality and his practice, then there has to be a problem. There is a problem here somewhere. What's the ruling on a person when he hears the name of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam during the adhan, that he kisses his thumbs and then wipes it across his eyes? There's a narration that's been narrated in Darimi on the authority of Abu Bakr, that he used to kiss the inside of his fingers, not his thumb, his index fingers, and then wipe them over his eyes when he heard the name of the Prophet ﷺ during the adhan and the iqamah. Not the thumbs, the index fingers from the inside, the tips of it. He used to kiss it and then wipe it across his eyes during the adhan and the iqamah. However, this narration is extremely weak, to the extent some of the ulama have said that it is absolutely fabricated and cannot be attributed to Abu Bakr, let alone it being attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. But the narration goes like this, that a person says this, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu, Raditu Billah Rabban wa Islami Dina wa Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam nabiyya, and then he kisses his eyes and then he wipes over it. But again, the ulama have said that this is weak. Sakhawi from the ulama of hadith has said that this hadith is not correct, and he actually said that it is mawdu', and there is nothing narrated anything which is similar to this. Imam al-Shawkani also said that it is weak, and many from the ulama have said that it is weak. And in actual fact, Mullah Ali Qari, who was a Hanafi muhaddith scholar, he said that this was actually narrated and invented by Sufis. And there's also one Sufi Sheikh, Abu Abbas ibn Abi Bakr al-Raddad al-Yamani, who narrated this in his book, and then he said that it has been narrated with this chain, and the chain goes back to Al-Khidr. So Mullah Ali Qari said that this chain has so many gaps in it and so many cuts in it, and it has so many people that are unknown to the field and the science of hadith. So there is no such thing as kissing a person's fingers or thumbs when they hear the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam during the adhan. In actual fact, even adding anything to the adhan and repeating after the mu'adhin would be an innovation in itself. So we hear people saying, for example, when the mu'adhin says Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, they say Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That's not prescribed. Hadith number 1, Bukhari Muslim, Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Yaqul mithla ma yaqul mu'adhin. Say exactly what the mu'adhin is saying. Don't add anything, don't take anything away. So how about kissing your fingers, etc., when the Prophet ﷺ is telling us to stick to the wording of the mu'adhin? Hadith number 24, after you've had the adhan, you say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa anna Muhammad abduhu wa rasuluhu Raditu Billah rabban wa Muhammad rasulah wa bil islami deena. The person then, in this hadith here, number 24, is prescribed to send peace and blessings upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. يصلي على النبي بعد فراغه من إجابة المؤذن. So after he has finished following what the mu'adhin was saying, he says this, Raditu Billah, and then he sends peace and blessings upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the most correct way and the best way of doing it is the way that we do in Salah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad until Hamidun Majid. But even if you just say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad and then you go to the next dua, which is the dua for the adhan, then this bi'idhnillah is sufficient. So before we do the actual dhikr for the adhan, we send peace and blessings upon Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And the wording of Salat Salam, all this, I'm sure we've looked at it before, but we're going to look at it in the coming chapters anyway when it comes to the adhkar of the Salat. Hadith number 25, and this is the hadith for the adhan, and the second last one in this chapter. When you finish hearing the adhan, then the prescribed dhikr is Allahumma rabba hadhihi ad-da'wati at-tamma. O Allah, the Lord of this perfect call. This is because the adhan is perfect. As we've looked at what Imam Qurtubi and as others of the ulama have said, the order is perfect. The sentences are profound and comprehensive in its meaning. And like we've said in the very beginning, and we reiterate again, is that this really should have an effect, because this has been legislated from the time of the Prophet ﷺ until Yawm al-Qiyamah, to be said 5 times a day, to call you to the second pillar of Islam, to remind you of the first pillar of Islam. These wordings should have an effect on you. And this is why it's been called Da'wat at-Taamah, the complete call, because it has Tawheed, it has Shahada, it has truth, it's a symbol of Islam, it's a symbol of justice, there's no shirk in it. And also some of the ulama have said Da'wat at-Taamah refers to a call which is not going to fade away. It's a complete call which is not going to fade away. And it will be consistent until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Was-salat al-qa'imah, and the Lord of the one, or the Lord of the prayer that is about to be established. Give Muhammad, Ati Muhammad al-Waseelah wal-Fadeelah. Give Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam the Waseelah and give him the Fadeelah. The Waseelah refers to the highest station in Jannah. The Waseelah is that there is no reward given to anybody higher than the reward given to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The station in Firdaus itself, within Firdaus, the highest within that, given to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is what we're supplicating for here. Wal Fadeelah is given, O Allah, give Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam the honor that you have promised to give him over all of creation. وَبَأَثْهُ مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا الَّذِي وَعَدْتَ. And O Allah, make him resurrect upon the maqam mahmud that you have promised him with. In Surah Isra, Allah commands the Prophet ﷺ, it was obligatory upon him in the early stages, وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَتَهَجَّدْ بِهِ نَافِلَةً لَكَ. Nafila, the ulama have said that this was obligatory upon you to establish the night prayers at length. And because you will do this, عَسَىٰ أَن يَبْعَثَكَ رَبُّكَ مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا. And Allah will, in exchange, give you that exalted platform on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And this Maqam Mahmud is the place where the Prophet ﷺ will intercede on behalf of his ummah and the whole of mankind, that the Day of Judgment will commence. And there's only one person that can do that, and there's only one person that has been given to, alayhi salam. There's also another narration which adds innaka la tukhliful mi'ad, because you, O Allah, don't go against your promise. You are the Lord of this call. You are the Lord of this prayer. You are the Lord of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Give Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the highest station in the akhirah. Give him that platform on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and you will not contradict, and you do not contradict any of your promises. And some of the ulama have said that that is weak, but there's many from the ulama, such as Ibn Baz and others like Ibn Hajar and others from the ulama who have said that it is hasan, and you can say that, and it's acceptable. But others like Shaykh Albani and others have said that no, it's not found in the narration which is in Bukhari. This is in Bukhari. Until Mahmud alladhi wa'adda is found in Bukhari. And that addition of innaka la tukhlif is weak because Bukhari didn't accept it. But others from the ulama have said it's an addition. And from the qawaid and the principles of sciences of hadith is that if there is an addition that something is already there, sahih, in Bukhari or Muslim, and there's another hadith which is the same as that one but it's adding more information, as long as this is hadith is sahih, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's contradicting Bukhari. You can add upon it. So bi'ithnillah, Allah knows best, but this seems to be the correct opinion, and this is what the opinion of the author here also, innaka la tukhlifu al-mi'ad, it's hasan, and you can say. And then is prescribed, the author is saying here, يَدْعُ لِنَفْسِ بَيْنَ الْأَذَانِ وَالْإِقَامَةِ. After he has finished the adhan, after he's finished listening to the adhan and repeating after the mu'adhin, then he says, Raditu Billah Rabban. Then he makes salat and salam upon the Prophet ﷺ. Then he makes this dua, this supplication for the adhan, until the end. Then he should busy himself in what is good for him between the adhan and the iqamah. Between the adhan and iqamah. And from these things is dua. And from these things is salat. And from these things is recitation of the Quran and making dhikr. And one of the things that's been narrated in Tirmidhi and Dawood and Ahmad and others, and Imam Albani has said is sahih also, فَإِنَّ الدُّعَى حِينَ إِذٍ لَا يُرَدْ. That dua between adhan and iqamah is not rejected from Allah Jalla wa'ala. So this is a virtue, but there are other virtues also. There's a hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr. The Prophet ﷺ said that if you send peace and blessings upon the Prophet ﷺ once, then Allah Jalla wa'ala sends peace and blessings upon you tenfold. We also learn from this that the Prophet ﷺ, that what we are doing here is we are praying for the Prophet ﷺ to have that high station. And the Prophet ﷺ has said in hadith that whoever says this supplication, until the end, that his intercession will be made obligatory upon that person. And also, there's a lot of khair that we can imagine from these practices here. Ask Allah to make this beneficial for us all and give us tawfiq to implement it, and that Eman and ilm and dhikr and Quran and all of these things that are still found and readily available of goodness in a world which is becoming ever more difficult to live in, and more corrupt and more oppression and more criminality is spreading. Ask Allah to give us the ability to remain upright and to be steadfast and help other people to stay away from oppression and stay away from what is harming them also. I ask Allah to give us the best of ability to implement this and implement whatever we learn from the religion, that it doesn't fall as a proof against us, and that it is a proof for us in Yawm al-Qiyamah. هذا والله أعلم وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Yes, uncle.
Repeating the words of Athan, it should be quiet within, or it should be lightly spoken.
Is a person required to repeat after the mu'adhin aloud, or should he whisper it, or should he say? The way of responding is entirely up to you. As long as you are not going to disturb anybody else, then if you can do it aloud and you are going to benefit from that, then you can do so. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he's got a discussion about what is better, reciting the Quran or making dhikr. Reciting the Quran, making dhikr. Reciting the Quran, every single letter we know is tenfold in its reward. But then when you say different adhkar, some of them are from the treasures of Jannah, some of them fill up your scales, some of them fill up everything between the heavens and the earth, some of them protect you from shaitan. So what's better? What should you engage yourself with? Dhikr or recitation of the Quran? So Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, what you should busy yourself with is what is going to be better for you as an individual with your iman and your ability to practice. This is from the mercy of Islam, that it hasn't made the door for goodness just one door, because not everybody can fit through that door. It's spread it out. So this is the same thing that I would say here also. At times, maybe you need to do it loud. Sometimes you might want to do it quietly, and that might be better for you, for your own khushu'. Sometimes there may be a lot of distractions, and you want to say it loud, so that you can focus. So there is no set way, but the general principle that has been set out by the ulama is that when it comes to adhkar, then the best way of doing it is, or the best kind of action, and the best way of doing it, is a way that's going to benefit you, because that's the purpose of doing dhikr, that you should have an effect on you. Jazakallah khair. Yes, Nabil.
Sheikh, forgive me if you already said, but Bilal radiallahu anhu was the first mu'addin.
Yeah.
So the adhan that was obviously prescribed that we recite today, was that told to him by the Prophet ﷺ, or how did it?
There was an adhan that was already being said before Bilal was appointed, and that adhan had additional statements where they would, this is known as tarji, so where the mu'adhin wouldn't say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah aloud. So he would say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, then he would whisper to himself ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha. Then he would say aloud ashhadu an la ilaha. Then ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, he would whisper to himself, and then he would say ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. And then we have the adhan of Ibn Maktoum and Bilal, who shared the same adhan without this addition of tarji. And the ulama have said that the second one is abrogating the first one, because this then became the practice of the Prophet ﷺ and how he would have the adhan read for him. But others from the ulama have said that if it's possible for a person to combine, and this is another qaida that's given to us by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, Allah have mercy on him, and illuminate his grave, because he is still continuing to benefit this ummah 800 years on, is that he said that if there are different narrations saying different things, and they seem to contradict, then what you should do is variate, and you should use all of them, because there is no evidence to say that the adhan of Bilal has abrogated the other one. Yes, it became common practice afterwards, and this is what the Prophet ﷺ got used to, but there's no indication to say that that abrogated the first one. Excuse me. So now, what we learn from this is that if you are able to implement everything in different ways, then you should do so. Does that answer the question?
Kind of, Sheikh, but if, for example, was there other hadith from Bilal onwards saying that he used to do the original adhan, and if there wasn't, would that suggest that it was abrogated?
What's the narration say?
No, I said, you know how you said there was an original adhan, so there was
Yeah.
the first adhan, and then Bilal came with the second one.
Yeah.
Are there narrations saying that Bilal did the first one at all? And if there isn't,
No.
so if there isn't, does that suggest that it's been abrogated?
This is what they've said. This is what a lot of the ulama have said. So they've said that there is no such thing as tarjih anymore, that you wouldn't be doing that. And the adhan of Bilal, because he's the muaddin of Rasulullah, and this is what he became known as also, and this is how it should be. But like we've said before, is that abrogating text needs to be explicit sometimes with the ulama, and without it being explicitly stated or implicitly suggested. And Ibn Taymiyyah and others like Ibn Uthaymeen as well, rahimahullah, have said there is no implicit suggestion here, then we should act upon everything. Another example of this, for example, Prophet ﷺ, as we see next week, is that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 different ways of dua al-istiftah, the dua that you should do before you start reciting in your salat. So now what's abrogating? Is there an abrogator? We know that Prophet ﷺ used to habitually say Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa tabarak ismuk, etc. So is that the one that becomes the one that we focus on and abrogate everything else? So now Ibn Taymiyyah is saying, no, what you do is you act upon all of them. And then you are taking the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ in all of its senses and not rejecting some hadith. And so you are combining all of them. And this is another example of it with the adhan. If you have to, especially for example there are new Muslims, etc., then it's suggested that you can do it. Wait.
Ustadh, you mentioned the signs of piety is to go to the front row.
Yeah.
And the opposite is true, those that on the back, it shows a sign. What advice would you give? Because the majority of people forget the back or the front, they don't even enter the masjid. What advice would you give these people that are struggling with salah or they don't enter the masjid at all?
What advice would you give to people who don't pray, or when they come pray, that they come with laziness so that they don't come to the front? What we need to do is remind them of the purpose of their existence and remind them that they have been put here for a lofty and noble reason. Allah has given us a great deal of nobility. Day and night, He's providing day and night. There's huge objects in the sky that are rotating for your sake. That sun and the moon are not there for alien objects. That sun and the moon are not there for anything except for human beings and jinn. And Allah Jalla wa Ala has put those things there, and it's not coincidental that those things dictate the time we pray. And Allah Jalla wa Ala, the first thing that He's going to ask us about is the salat. And there's so many things that could be suggested, but I think what we need to do is, give importance to the purpose of our creation, and that reminding the people that soon you're going to go back to your Lord, and if you're not prepared, then it'll only be a life of regret in the hereafter. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah said that a person's connection to his salat will give you the level of ease and tranquility that he has in his life. If a person gives importance to salat, then you will know that the person will have a good life. Because what he is doing on a daily basis is he's remembering his Lord, and his Lord will remember him, and he is questioning and accounting for himself. So therefore when he leaves the masjid, that salah that he has prayed is going to affect him between Dhuhr and Asr, and then between Asr and Maghrib. It's not just systematic actions that he has performed. So if you're coming into the masjid, or if you're not coming to the masjid at all, then it's almost inevitable that you're going to have problems in your life. But Allah Jalla wa Ala is merciful, and if He wanted, He could take us at the very moment we slip, because we slip all the time. But He is patient, and He loves us, and He is showing mercy for us. And He doesn't want us to go to the hellfire, even though Iblis has sworn that he's going to make you to go to the hellfire. But Allah continues to give you breath, Allah continues for your heart to pump, He continues to give you food and drink, so that, why? That you can enjoy it? No, that's not the point. Allah continues to give on a daily basis so that you can go to Jannah. That's how noble you are in the sight of Allah, a small speck of this creation, who, if Allah Jalla wa Ala is going to roll up the heavens and the earth, and it's going to be like a mustard seed size in the palm of His hand, where are you in that? You won't be even, it's completely minuscule, your size with Allah. But look at Allah Jalla wa Ala, from that size of everything that He has created, He shows love to you, and He continues to think about you, that little speck, you couldn't even measure. And He thinks about your rizq, and He thinks about your affairs, and He thinks about, is he happy, is he not happy, is he going to come back to me, is there something that he needs? This is in the dunya. In the akhirah, 4 Jannahs are promised for that person. Not one. Surah Rahman, you read it. The person who enters Jannah will have 4 Jannah. Every single person that enters Jannah, not one. Every single person that enters Jannah will have 4 Jannahs. And Surah Rahman is being split in that way, where Allah Jalla wa talks about 2 Jannahs. And then after that, as you think, oh, subhanAllah, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, and then Allah says, وَمِن دُونِهِمَا جَنَّتَانِ. And after that, He's going to give you 2 more Jannahs. That small speck, if Allah wanted, He could throw you in the hellfire and won't affect him in the slightest. It's like you're getting an ant right now and you're flicking it. It doesn't change you a little in the slightest. But Allah Jalla wa Ala, out of His mercy and compassion and His love for you, will get that being, that object, and He'll elevate it. But it can only be there if there is a connection. And if a person is showing signs of negligence and showing that he doesn't really need Allah, then that's an unfortunate state. So what we need to do is we need to remind them about their purpose of their creation and what they could possibly have in this dunya and what is stored for them in the akhirah if they turn back to Allah. Ibrahim.
What if you're travelling, for example, and you enter a masjid, you combine the salah and then the adhan goes, what you should do?
If a person is travelling and the adhan has gone, then the ulama have said, some of the ulama have said that because he is travelling, then the salatul jama'ah is not wajib upon him, and then he can carry on. But others from the ulama, the Hanabila, have said that if you hear the adhan, then you must pray with the jama'ah. And you will find many of the contemporaries saying this. So for example, a person is travelling Yawm al-Jum'ah, and so now the Jum'ah is not wajib upon him, but if he hears the adhan, or he's there in the city at that time, then he must pray Jum'ah. And the masjid is accessible to him, and he must pray, even if he's a traveller. But it's not the opinion of the majority. The majority will say, no, because he is a traveller, he is excused. He's excused from praying the full, then what about the Jum'ah? So I would say in that scenario, a person needs to look at the situation. If he is able to stay, then he should stay and he should pray with them. And he should actually, in actual fact, maybe even delay praying his prayer and pray with them so that he has fulfilled or, been safer between the scholarly views. So for example, a person comes to the masjid and his dhuhr time has begun. Technically now, say for example, he enters the masjid 12:15. Technically now, he can pray 2 rakat for dhuhr, 2 rakat for asr, and then be on his way. He's gone, he's travelling. But if he waits for 5 minutes, he'll hear the adhan for dhuhr. And I will say, and whilst he's praying, now he's going to hear the adhan for dhuhr. So I'll say in that scenario, it's probably best for you just to come to the masjid, maybe pray Tahiyatul Masjid, recite some Quran if you can. Pray the 4 rakat with the jama'ah, pray the 2 for asr for yourself, and then go on your way. That way you're going to get the reward and you are acting upon what is safer. Zain.
So, how you said praying in the front row is a sign of piety.
Yeah.
Say if I'm in the front row and there's a person behind me who I believe is more piety than me, is it permissible for me to move and let him go, or should I stay there?
Does a person, if a person is in the front row and he thinks that another person is more pious than him, then should he let that person go in front of him? The elders do this a lot as well. Now, the thing is with this, the Prophet ﷺ has talked about a person coming to the masjid as a sign of piety. This is an encouragement. The Prophet ﷺ is telling us to come to the masjid as a sign of encouragement and telling us to come so that we can get closer to Allah and that we ourselves become closer to Allah and we ourselves free ourselves from Nifaq and Shirk and all these things. Not that a person thinks of other people better and thinks, well, he's better than me, then he can do this. The point here between these narrations is that a person needs to free himself from the hellfire. You can't say, okay, well, I think I've got a bit of Nifaq and a bit of Iman and that's my status and he's better than me, so he can go. That's not the point. The point here is is that you want Jannah, you want to be safe from the hellfire, you want to be safe from Nifaq, you want to perfect your Eman and Tawhid, come to the Masjid. Come early. Think about your connection with Allah. Take the Salah seriously. Increase your level of khushu', increase your level of adhkar and dua, increase your closeness to Allah whilst you're in the Salah. Because if you do this, like we've talked about Ibn al-Qayyim before, if you do this correctly and that Salah has been accepted from you from Allah, then you will find that that Salat will influence you between that Salah and the next Salah. You will see that in your life. You will see it. So when you leave those doors, you've not left off worse off than you were in the beginning, as like some people are, unfortunately. You've left off better. You've left off it having an actual impact in your life. This is the meaning of it. And there's a general qaida also, Ibn Rajab rahimahullah said that when it comes to having love for your brother, then you should do that, but that is mustahab. You don't believe, none of you truly believe, until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. But this is out of what is mustahab. So for example, I have something which you need. Would it be better for me now to give it to you, or for me to have it for myself? In that scenario, I'll give it for the sake of Allah, because you need it, and I know that you like it, etc. It's mustahab. Ibn Rajab rahimahullah is saying that this hadith doesn't mean that we give precedence and preference to your brother in actions of reward. So now, for example, you and your friend have walked into the masjid. There's only one space left in the front saf. Do you say, no, you go ahead? No. The ulama agreed that here, what a person should do is hasten to do good deeds and not think about other people. Himself. Not that there's a level of selfishness here for yourself. Not that you don't want good for that person. There's a difference. So you try and encourage him, give him nasiha, etc. But if there's a choice between yourself and somebody else, in that scenario, you want to preserve your own iman. Another example, for example, you come to the masjid, you're with your friend. What do? You sit there talking to him, or you recite the Quran? Recite Quran, make dua, use this time beneficially in the house of Allah. You've only got 5-10 minutes before the next salah, and one of the ahkam and one of the hikam of coming to the salah early is that it will help your khushu'. A person coming to the salah whilst the salah is going on, his level of khushu' is not going to be the same as the person who came early. The person who came early, he's come in a tranquil state, and this is one of the wisdoms of having sunnah prayers before the actual prayer, is that you prepare yourself for the obligatory one. You don't just walk in straight to the obligatory one. You have those warm-up salahs. You have the ability now to recite Quran and dhikr and all those kind of things. Okay, but yeah, he's going to carry on talking and he might get upset if I don't speak to him. Ibn Rajab is saying here, no, this hadith. Normally, outside, say you're in the restaurant with him, if you don't speak to him, you're on your phone, and he might get upset, yes, put your phone away. Love for your brother what you love for yourself. Don't want to upset him. Put your phone. But in this scenario now, I want to recite the Quran. I would advise him, if he doesn't listen, I'm reciting the Quran. This is my time. Barakallahu feek. Nabilan.
Sure, sorry, one more question. If, for example, I'm with some friends and we've just finished one lecture or whatever, and we come to the Masjid for Asr, but the congregation's already done, do we still have to recite the Adhan, or can we just...
The ruling of the Adhan, does a person need to repeat the Adhan if they've missed the prayer? The ruling of the Adhan is that it is Fard Kifaya. Fard Kifaya means that there has to be one Adhan in the whole city. And again, the Imam is the one who generally stipulates where that should be done. It's normally done in the middle of the city, so that everybody in the surrounding area knows that the prayer time has begun. That's the hikmah, and that's the way it's implemented traditionally. But if there is a need, then it would need to have it spread out across the city. But the hukam for that whole area is that there has to be one adhan. As long as that adhan is done, then it's fine. Now, if you've come into the masjid and the adhan has already been carried out in the masjid, then you wouldn't repeat it, because now you are actually contradicting the very reason why it's been legislated, which is to alert people that the time for prayer has begun and the congregation prayer is about to start. If you do adhan again, and iqamah again, and all those things again, it becomes confusing. So now, that's the reason behind that. So now what you would do in that scenario is you just do the iqamah, because the iqamah has a separate function, which is that now the saf is getting ready, not the prayer time has begun. And this is local, it's not done out aloud, for example. So now, you would do the iqamah and not the adhan. If you are in, for example, a musalla, and there has been no adhan or iqamah, then you would do the adhan and iqamah. Or if you are going on the motorway, then you can do the adhan and iqamah if there is no harm in you doing so.
And if you're at home?
And if you're at home, then you can do the adhan and iqamah also if there is no harm in doing so. Yeah.
I know you covered it before, but I just forgot which one's more preferred. Is if you miss a jama'ah, you come late, for example, is any reward in making? Is it better for us to do our own jama'ah or pray by ourselves?
The Prophet, the question here is now, if a person has missed the obligatory prayer in congregation and there's a group of people that have come in late, is it recommended for them to establish a second prayer congregationally? Then the Prophet ﷺ actually saw a man who came in late, and he said, "Man yatasaddaq ala hadha?" Who is the person that can give this man sadaqah, as in pray with him? So the majority of the ulama have said that it's not allowed. If you've missed the obligatory congregation prayer, then you are not allowed to have a second jama'ah, a third jama'ah, a fourth jama'ah. No, you come into the masjid, you all pray individually. Or you go home and pray, it's probably even better. Some of the ulama have said that. But the Hanabila have said that if a person has come late, or there's a group of you that has come late, then you can hold a second congregational prayer, except on the condition that this is not done on purpose, and that it's not done habitually. Because then what you're doing is you're defying that same hadith, and you're defying the whole purpose of having a congregational prayer. So if you're doing it, if it happens genuinely that you were late, you got stuck in traffic or something, then that's fine. If it happens every now and then, that's fine also. But if, for example, you've come to the masjid and there's no one in the masjid, then that's fine also, even if you're doing it every day. Because of the time it's suiting you, not that because you are missing that first congregational prayer on purpose through laziness, etc. Or you're going and you've gone past the masjid and you're going to another place, for example, to a gym or to your workplace together. You can't stop in the masjid, and every day you go to that other place to establish your prayer, then that's also fine, bi'idhnillah. Inshallah, next week we have the dua for the beginning of the prayer. Ask Allah to give us tawfiq and ability to benefit from it. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. بارك الله. Salam, how are you? You alright, yeah? Barakallah.